Welcome back, everybody. I'm Naha, and this is 30 Days of Tarot. And if you've been with me for a minute, then you know that I am putting myself up to this 30-day challenge to put out a video for you guys every single day where I'm opening up all of these tarot decks, which I've accumulated over the last 2 years. And I've also put this out to you guys to do your own 30-day challenge and to send those to me so that we can support each other. And at the end of this video, I'm actually going to give a shout out to all of you who have been sending me that on Instagram or on Facebook or here. So I really encourage you guys to keep it up. And for those of you who are new here, let's say you didn't get a chance to start on the first, or maybe you actually did, but you've kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit, or you just didn't get your ducks in order to be able to start with me on the first. Well, guess what? Today is a new day, and it's a special day because today's the new moon. So today is the perfect day to put yourself to a challenge, to set a bar for yourself, to say this is something I want to work on, something I want to commit to, maybe for the next 30 days, maybe just for the next week. Whatever that is, whatever your 30-day challenge might be. Maybe you want to work on not being late. Maybe you want to work on drinking more water every day, setting some time aside to read every day or to meditate every day or to do something kind for somebody else every day. Whatever that might be. Maybe you want to cut something out of your diet or some other kind of bad behavior. So whatever you're working on, I absolutely encourage you guys, because so much of the time, the thing that stands in the way of us starting something and making a change or getting something done, like this huge pile of tarot decks open, is that we make excuses, of course, but we also say, oh, I'll do it later. Oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it when I have time. I'll do it when I can sit down and think about it. Later. And the time, you guys, is now. It's not about later. It's about being able to say, all right, I'm going to commit to starting something now. I can always push things off. I can always postpone. I can always procrastinate. It takes a certain sense of willpower to say, it's okay for me to go ahead and get started. I don't have to be worrying about what's going to look like in a week or 2 weeks or even tomorrow. One day at a time, right? So I encourage you guys to start today. And in the nature of this new energy, new moon energy, I have a deck to share with you, and that is the New Vision Tarot. Now, I will admit this is a deck that this is not the first time I've opened this deck. I haven't made a video about it before, but I actually had to rebuy this deck because this deck has gone missing. And I normally, you might say, Naha, you have 100 other decks. Why do you need to have, why is it so important to have this one? And it is weird because normally decks don't go missing, but I use this one for teaching, and so that's why it was important for me to get another one. And what was kind of cool is, since I lost mine, which chances are 5 minutes after posting this video, what's going to happen? I'm going to find my original, right? But they've come out with a premiere edition or a deluxe edition, so I was able to get that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out for you guys. This is so cool. When I saw this online, I didn't even expect that it was going to be as beautiful as it is. And I've shared with you before, I'm a sucker for good packaging. So here we see this beautiful box. Now, this is published by Lo Scarabeo, that Italian tarot publishing company. And so it's got this gold imprint with the scarabs on it. Isn't that cool? I absolutely love that. And I think I pre-ordered this deck, but it did come out, it's probably been out for a couple years now. So I believe you can still get this. I'm not sure. It might be limited edition. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, it does come with this book, and this, I'm pretty sure that the original version didn't have this thicker book. It probably just had the little white booklet because it just came in a regular size box. So we see that we actually have color photos with descriptions, and each of the cards, it's interesting because it says the old vision, the new vision, and the whole vision. So what this deck is, I'll explain to you guys in a minute, but it's interesting that we have sort of like 3 messages in here. This is actually in multiple languages. Let's see. Came out in 2015, and the premium edition, and it's in English, Italian, Spanish, French, German. So that actually doesn't surprise me, because one thing that Lo Scarabeo does, and this is actually kind of like a bone of contention that I have with them, is that they place on their cards up at the top of their cards, they put the title of the card in 4 different languages. And you've probably heard me say this in other videos. I find it really distracting to have all these words, and I have plenty of decks that aren't in English, and I can still tell what card it is. You know, if you've worked with the cards, you should be able to know the cards without needing to see 4 different spellings of the same word, especially because those languages, the word looks very similar anyway. Like, even if you don't speak the language, you can oftentimes like tell what it says. So anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, here's the back, and we can see the Knight of Cups. As you might recognize him, looks like the Rider-Waite-Smith Knight of Cups, right? There's the title card, looks at first glance like the Rider-Waite-Smith Two of Cups. Now, you might have heard me talk about this deck before. If you saw my video on the After Tarot, this is created by the same artists. Deck created by Pietro Aligo and artwork by Raul and Gianluca Sestaro, so brother and sister perhaps. So what we saw in the After Tarot was that it was the Rider-Waite-Smith cards reimagined as if the scene had played out for a little bit and then you saw the image. So it's almost like the image was flash forwarded 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, and you see it's like the aftermath of what happened a little while later. That was the second deck that came out. This was the first one in which you see a different perspective, a 180-degree twist. Rather than looking at the card and seeing it straight on, it's like you're looking at the card from the back, either looking through the character's eyes instead of at them, sort of seeing what they see. So look at this. Here we have the Fool. Normally we see the Fool from this angle, and we see he's kind of going off maybe to the edge of the cliff. Now from here we can actually see what's on the other side of the cliff. There's this volcano erupting. Makes it a little bit more of a foreboding kind of message, doesn't it? Here we see the Magician. Now, the Magician typically is a solo character, but from this perspective, we can see he actually has an audience. We see the little monkey down below. He was in the Grand Esoterico a few videos back. And one of the correspondences with the monkey is actually Thoth, who is the Egyptian god of magic and writing, and who some would argue is the patron deity of the tarot. And Thoth also corresponds with Roman Mercury. Mercury corresponds with the Magician. So that might be what they were going for. Or that might just be my own interpretation. They might have another meaning for that there. Here's the High Priestess, where her veil is now down. We see what she's looking at, the Great Sea. And we see behind her she has the Owl of Wisdom. This kind of implies Athena and the pomegranate there. Here's the Empress. She has the children playing behind her. So isn't this interesting? You guys get the idea. We're looking at the cards from behind, and you guys, oh my God, I can't believe I'm just noticing this. There's no words. Did Los Scarabeo watch my videos? Did they hear my complaints? They've taken off that all of those blah, 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 French and English and German descriptions, and it just has the number. Not only that, they've just taken the single. It doesn't even say emperor in any language. They've just put the number. Now, that's awesome. Let me take a look at the minor cards really quick and see. Oh, wow. This is so cool. The very thing, the one thing that I didn't like about the Los Scarabeo decks, and you see this a deck after deck after deck, and it seems like maybe I'm not the only person that gave them that feedback. Now, the only thing, of course, not to now have a new complaint, it does seem kind of strange that they would put the 5 above and the 5 below. I don't know why it needs to be in both places. But this is amazing. I love that they finally took that really distracting, less words, more symbols. That's what we like, right? We see the Lovers, what they're looking at. Now, some of these cards don't really change that much, but some of them give us, these artists come up with really interesting, different ideas that they've added. Look at the Chariot. We actually see 2 people here that are being led by the Chariot. Looks like there's some kind of captives, right? Let's take a look in the book and see what it has to say here. So let's see the Chariot. It has the old vision A warrior stands in a chariot drawn by two sphinxes, and it goes on to describe the standard version, the Rider-Waite-Smith image. The new vision. From this perspective, we see that the triumphant warrior is being greeted by a cheering crowd. His self-confidence and strong will are validated by this approval from others. Walking behind him, though, are spoils from his crusade. Two half-naked slaves, their wrists bound with ropes tied to the chariot. The male slave looks over his shoulder at the viewer with an expression of hostility and assessment. Whose side are you on? Can you see that expression there? Whole vision. So that's the new vision. And then it says whole vision. And I think what that's taking into account is the original vision, what they're showing, and sort of putting it together. Victory and success are assured, but perhaps at the cost of your ethical principles. Be sure you can live with this before progressing further. This is fascinating to me because I don't remember seeing in the original version of this that I had. Now, I've told you guys there's Samson up there on the strength card. Or you hardly ever read the little white booklet, so maybe that information came with the original deck, but I actually find that even sort of more fascinating than the images. Now, here's the Hermit, and this is funny because we talked about this in yesterday's video. So we were looking at some of the older correspondences with the Hebrew letters, and not the Golden Dawn, but the older French and Spanish and Italian correspondences, where the card Virgo would have corresponded to the Hebrew letter Tet. And the letter Tet means a serpent. And here we actually see that serpent. I had mentioned this in the video. Now the serpent can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It can be the serpent of temptation, and in that way it can be a warning or a danger. It can also be the serpent of wisdom, the serpent of knowledge. It can represent the energy that moves up the body as the nadis, the two caduceus around Hermes' staff. It can be the rising of the kundalini, so many different things. But when I interpret this, I see this as kind of this nod, because the serpent's behind him, almost like this nod to other associations of the past and sort of the lineage of tarot. So does it matter if that is what the artist intended? As a reader, no. I include within my readings my context of knowledge, regardless of whether the artist intended for me to interpret it that way. Now, the Wheel of Fortune doesn't change too much. This wheel looks metallic, but otherwise it looks basically the same as it does from the front. Here in the Hanged Man, though, we see, again, the crowd sort of hecklers there. The Death card doesn't look that different. It's very similar. But then this is interesting. In the Temperance card, we see this alchemical, this Othenor here, this sort of alchemical laboratory equipment that's going on there. Let's go ahead and look at some of the minors, and this is very cool what they've chosen. Again, I'm so excited about leaving all the words off of here. So look at this. They've put the 1 and then they've put the cup down here. So again, you've got the number, but then you have the symbol of the suit. So this card looks similar, but we see these birds coming in. In the 3 of Cups, we're just looking at this from a different angle. And this is exactly what I teach my students to do. To imagine that the cards are not just these flat photographs, just these images, but to be able to imagine that they're actually moving pictures. You can project yourself right into the card and then imagine kind of looking around. What else do you see? Some of them I feel are a stretch. Like, for instance, here's the 4 of Cups. We see this Pegasus flying in, so it seems a little fantastical. However, Pegasus is in the Greek myths, so if we have other sort of deities from and other aspects from the Greek or Greco-Roman pantheon, why not Pegasus, right? This is cool. Here's the 6 of Cups. Now, this is a card of reunions, right? And we see in the sky kind of this image of these ancestors, these grandparents. So you could say, all right, this is their grandparents looking down at them from heaven, but they also look very similar to these two. And I consider this as a card of reunions. It's not always reunions with people that you know. Sometimes it's reunions with people that you haven't met this lifetime yet, but that you have had other lifetimes with, that you do actually have a former incarnations with. And so maybe that's exactly what we're seeing here, is these two having like another life where they're meeting again, right? This is a card that I always have had a little bit of trouble with, the Nine of Cups, because I've just always found this really strange, like this big table behind him, this weird high table. And now it's kind of funny because we see these kids playing behind there, she's eating. So it almost looks like, you know, the parents or the families were having some kind of a get together, it was a dinner party or maybe a holiday celebration. And here's the children back, you know, behind here kind of doing children things. Let's look at some of these court cards. And okay, this is cool. I see what they're doing here. So here's the page, the queen, and we see behind the throne, or the king rather, the queen and the knight. And look at the emblems that they've put up here. So they've chosen 4 emblems rather than saying page, knight, queen, king. For the pages, we see a helmet. For the knights, a horse. The kings have a crown and the queens have a tiara. And then they're all the family of cups. So we see the cups down at the bottom. The King of Cups is interesting because we look and we see these tools back here. They look like Masonic tools. There's a hammer and a compass. And then we see a dagger here and an axe. Then we see this ark, almost like Noah's Ark, right? Crusting on the wave here. We even see this little dolphin. There's a lot going on in this card, isn't there? Now again, this can be up to my interpretation, what stands out to me and what doesn't. Just like when the artists created this, do you think that these are exactly what Pamela Coleman Smith and Arthur Edward Waite had in mind when they would have looked at the cards from another angle? No, the artists have come up with their own interpretation of this. There's the 3 of Pentacles. We can see from the inside, not the outside. And I want to show you guys the 8 because I've always found that to be kind of an interesting one. This made so much sense. This was like what I would have visioned if I had imagined this card from the other angle. So I'm not going to show you right away. Now here's the part of the 8 of Pentacles that you already know. We see this guy, he's hard at work, he's banging out these pentacles one after another, and it just kind of conveys this sort of repetitive movement, just like keeping the ball rolling, almost sort of churning things out like a factory, right? It's a card of productivity. But I've always thought there was a lot, normally in this card, this is all just negative space. But look what we see here. Behind him, we see another craftsman working with the same tools, but this one is chiseling out this statue, which implies something that would just be a one-of-a-kind thing that they're going to make. Not just rolling out one after another, but something that would be a singular, maybe like a work of art, or you could interpret this in your regular life like a one-off project. This could be like your job, the thing that you go to every day. And this might be just an activity or a project or a collaboration, something that you're a part of that maybe you'll just do once. And maybe it's only going to take a certain amount of time. It's not going to be something you're going to always do. So it's 2 different ways of looking at work. One which you create, this could also be said perhaps to be a labor of love, or maybe just higher thinking of what more you could do with your skills than just kind of your standard make pentacles all day, right? So this is probably not a deck that I would do readings with. I use it more, as I said, as a deck for learning, a deck for teaching, and a deck for doing comparisons. I find it's interesting to take this card and take the After Tarot and take the original version and lay them all out. And I wouldn't be surprised if other people have made videos on here where they've actually looked at all 3 versions together. This artist artwork, it's not my favorite style for tarot. It's got this sort of like graphic novel-y kind of look to it, which now I love graphic novels, but I love them when they're comic books and not when they're tarot cards. So, well, it's not necessarily my favorite artwork. It's, again, not why I bought this deck. I think the artwork is fine, but it's the concept that I love here. That is why I bought this. I think it's such a unique idea, and I absolutely commend the creators of this deck for taking on this project and doing something that I think really is quite revolutionary in the sense that so many people have just recolored the Rider-Waite deck or, you know, sort of redrawn the lines. Here, they've actually completely reimagined it, as I said, from a total another angle, the new vision. And I also have to commend Lo Scarabeo for finally taking off all of that annoying writing and just leaving the cards speaking for themselves. What a great idea. Oh, we see the little caravan there in the Knight of Wands. So it gives us a lot more to think about, a lot more to explore. Some of them I find a little strange. Others, I think this makes so much sense. Here's the Seven of Wands. And again, we see the little wand down there, and we can actually see some of the faces. I imagine this anyway, that those 7 wands that are sticking down here, people are holding those, and they're kind of poking at this guy. And I think that there's also going to be more value in going into the book here and really seeing the interpretation of with the original image and then the new vision and then putting them together. So let's look at that 3 of Cups. You guys already know that card, right? Let's see if I can find it. Because that's one that didn't change too much. But let's see what they say. The old vision. 3 happy women lift their chalices to toast the harvest. They wear flowers in their hair as they dance among the fruits and pumpkins that symbolize plenitude of well-being. Okay, doesn't look that different in this card, but here it says the new vision. The abundance of the ripe garden is all around the dancers, but the most precious harvest is their friendship, which they have tenderly nurtured over time. I love that. The whole vision. True friends share joy as well as troubles. Gather with those who are dear to you and celebrate the gift of your connection. I love that, and that's a really great message to end on. So thank you guys so much for being here. Happy new moon. Here's a little shout out to all of you who have gone ahead and committed to this 30-day challenge along with me, whatever your 30-day challenge is. You can always start today. You can always start tomorrow. You can always start on November 1st. So keep up the good work. Don't judge yourself. If you've fallen off, just get back on and you can still finish strong. I thank you guys so much for being here. Go ahead and like this video if you enjoyed it. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Share it if you would be so inclined. I would appreciate that so much. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.